MYM and Inferno. We are into the picks and bans phase here, guys. So let's see what these two teams have for us.
Okay, so we're going to have a different set of ban champions this time, most likely. And let's see exactly what they decide to ban out. Most likely Cassidy will be in there somewhere, but we'll see what fills in the blanks.
A lot of bans, I feel, will be targeted towards Armin. Armin is a very consistent, very strong player in the jungle, which I kind of attribute very similarly to Impaler. They have a very distinct play style of being very aggressive in the game, taking junglers who are very consistent in game, and just that allows their decision making to really just pull things through in the game. We can see Kale has been banned out as well, alongside Cassidy and Elise. We can already see jungle bans and mid lane bans, as you'd expect right now.
Yeah, Ammon definitely favors the picks who are more towards carrying from the jungle, such as like the Kha'Zix and people who have the resets and the chance to do more damage than like just an engaged champion like Vi. But still, we've seen Ammon pick up that champion as well.
And I have to wonder whether Armin has been practicing Pantheon then, because it fits his style. There's another ban, Lee Sin, away from Armin, so it means that we really are going to have these different junglers now than we normally see in the meta, and it does leave Pantheon available.
Right, so again, Pantheon is a pick that we saw a couple of days ago in the LCS, and we'll see if any other junglers have decided to pick that one up. So Heimerdinger will round out the bans.
Okay, so that's not the most serious of bans, but if I remember rightly, we casted a team the other day that decided not to ban a third champion because it allowed more champions through. Yasuo is available, and it looks like that's what Reason will be looking to pick up, but there are quite a few strong options to go for after that. You look at a champion like Gragas, who's still available, but Pantheon, who a lot of people have talked about, is available. We'll see where NIP go with this.
Yeah, and so Yasuo will be the first pickup from Reason Gaming, and usually Yasuo will be picked alongside another couple of champions which allow him to be more viable. Sometimes we see pickups like Zyra, which is more like a disengage composition, and then you can re-engage with the Yasuo. Sometimes we see like a Malphite, or even Trundle to chain into just the last breath engage.
Yeah, and of course, Armin had Kha'Zix available, which is another one of his champions. I mean, there is still a little bit of variance here. Might be Kha'Zix in the middle lane. That is still a possibility, but we'll actually see how that works out. Now, I think this is just a positional thing, but Nuke Duck is in the top position on picks and bans. I haven't read of a change, and I think this is just a positional thing, but I'm pretty sure it's still the way it normally is.
Yeah, I'm fairly sure that Nuke Duck hasn't just decided to become a top laner over the last couple of days, but that's going to be the next couple of follow-ups, being the Wukong, which is, again, something we don't see all too often, but again is very strong from not only the jungle role, but also the top lane and indeed the mid lane. And the Renekton is also going to be taken out. Yeah,
now Wukong, a lot of people have talked about in a similar vein to Pantheon in the jungle. The reason you couldn't use a lot of Wukong and Pantheon in the jungle before was before the changes to the spirit items, where the extra passive was included to give them the health and mana regen, was they kind of suffered on mana, but they're very strong early game, have a lot of damage in the jungle, and can really put a lot of effect on the game. We've already seen a Dr. Mundo lock in here for Zoro Zero, and maybe they'll be looking for their AD carry here. Freeze does have quite a lot of AD carries in his champion pool.
Absolutely, and it looks like it's going to be the Draven right here. At least they're hovering over that. That will be the next pickup. But Mundo has also been taken out, and also hovering over the potential Caitlyn, which is something we saw last game. And trades off against most of the bot lanes very effectively. Great at sieging. It's just a generally good champion all around.
Yeah, they lock in Caitlyn. Now, there's a little problem here for Reason Gaming as they insta-lock Jinx out in that AD carry position. Is they've got a lot of AD champions here. You look at mid, top, and jungle, that's heavy stacking of AD. So they've got to be careful that NIP just don't stack armor in this game.
Right.
And Annie pickup would help, because obviously that is magic damage, and would go a fair way now to really just providing a bit more mixed damage. Of course, there are sources of AP and magic damage that will come from some of the rest of the Reason lineup, but predominantly up until that point, they were AD focused.
Yeah, so there's a little bit from Flame Chompers, and Annie does bring a little bit. I mean, Annie specifically was a pick they kind of just had to go into, because Annie is one of those there's supports who can actually just 1v1 people by just having Deathfire Grass. Some people actually do build damage items on any support just so they can be more relevant in those team fights and not just have that utility. That's what they're going to bring to the table. So last pickup looks like it was going to be Fizz, and Ammon's going to be on Kha'Zix, which you saw a couple days ago as well. He's just very strong in those carry-type junglers.
Yeah, Kha'Zix in the jungle has become a lot more viable. Used to be able to be played in the jungle in the 2013 season, but the difference now is with the additional gold that comes from the conservation passive, he actually gets a lot more gold from the jungle as opposed to when he previously would require a lot of kills to be able to pick up kills in the... Sorry, a lot of kills to pick up items from the jungle. Unless he got significantly ahead, he always ended up falling behind.
I mean, it's kills to pick up more kills,
Yeah,
which
well,
is kind of the thing of Kha'Zix.
that's the thing that you do on Kha'Zix, is you get a kill, and then you typically get 2 more kills.
We've seen this quite a lot from NIP, where they'll run a composition where they need 2 champions with a couple kills on them, like Fizz, who needs maybe 2 kills to get rolling. Same thing with Kha'Zix, and we also saw Nuke Duck a couple of days ago run the Kassadin as well, who also needs a couple kills. So what they do is, like early game, they'll try and donate them in the right places, and usually they're so confident about securing those kills is they'll know exactly what to do with them and where to place them.
Yeah, we saw that with NIP. It was when they picked up Kassadin, as you were saying, was Nuke Duck was so confident that he knew he'd get kills later in the game that he just let the rest of his team have the early kills to get them through that period. And this kind of double assassin composition with Fizz and Kha'Zix has so much damage in the early game team fights that it's almost impossible to stop them getting kills.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll see exactly what they do. It's not a composition that's going to be too defensive from Reason Gaming, so there is going to be bloodshed, and NIP are going to thrive off of that. So we'll see exactly what they do in around 2 minutes' time, just as we tick down on the delay.
Yeah, we are ticking down on the delay. So I think this is a good time for everybody to head over to the FACEIT platform. Make sure you're all signed up. There's a lot of tournaments over there, daily tournaments to be able to win. A lot of prizes, keyboards, headsets that you can get in exchange for the FACEIT points, which you can get from winning those daily tournaments. And even better than that, we're giving away a promo code today and tomorrow for this for the FACEIT platform, which will give you premium membership. And you can see there up on screen how to get the promo code there. So make sure you head over to the platform and get yourself all filled in for premium membership.
Yeah, and that will allow you to use all the features on FACEIT. Some of the tournaments are going to be free. You can just join it if you are just a free account. Or if you use that promotion code, then there are some tournaments that you do have to be a premium member for, and that will just allow you to get even more points and even more prizes from the shop.
Also, there's on the Twitch page, there should be a link from, I think it's DL Compare. We'll be giving away a few games this weekend as well. So make sure you fill in that form for their giveaway too. So that is on the Twitch page as well. So plenty of stuff happening this weekend. And something that we're looking forward to happening in 1 minute's time is NIP versus Reason Gaming, game number 1. We are only 1 minute away, and it is sure to be a great game. I'm just starting to wonder how this double assassin composition will work against an early game focused jungler like Wukong.
I mean, we've seen it before, and we've seen it work out perfectly well for NIP. Usually they run at least more protection for their double assassins. Sometimes we've seen the Kayle also be picked up, but usually Miffy on Fresh will have enough CC to at least cause some disruption. I'm just concerned that if everyone just bowls up on Reason Gaming, which is a team fight they like to run, they've got Renekton who will be using Dominus, they've also got Wukong who will want to try and clip several people with his ultimate of the Cyclone, then they're never going to be really in a fight that NIP's roster wins on paper. And
that's something we hadn't talked about yet, was the synergy between Wukong and Yasuo. That yes, they're very AD focused, but Cyclone will knock up your enemies, and Yasuo can then combo that into the last breath. So it's a good engage tool, and pretty much a good way of securing that Yasuo ultimate.
There's also great ways of applying the armor penetration, because most likely we'll have a Black Cleaver being thrown out by Wukong. That will go in, Cyclone comes up, and everyone's ticking down with the Black Cleaver. Then you have the jump in from Yasuo. He also gets the extra penetration from his ultimate last breath, and then he's just basically dealing true damage at that point. So there's a huge amount of synergy between those two champions alone.
Yeah, so even though they are stacking armor pretty heavily, there is a good way of shredding through that, as you were saying. And that's really a well-constructed team composition. I mean, both teams here clearly have been practicing these compositions. They're by no means anything, out of the ordinary in the current meta. you know, going through the pick and ban phase, it's not like, apart from that Heimerdinger ban, it's not like anything was overly surprising, which Wukong hasn't been seen all that much yet in the LCS games. I don't think he's actually been seen in LCS at all, if I'm not mistaken, this week at least.
Right.
So, I mean, it's not too much of a surprise when you hear the pros talking about Wukong. But, I mean, it'll be good to see it the first time in this game in a competitive environment. Now, we are into game here, guys, for game number 1 of Reason Gaming versus Ninjas in Pyjamas.
Okay, so everyone's just going to be jumping out of their Nexus base and their fountain, and we'll see exactly what these guys do at level 1. And we probably don't expect to see either of these teams really look for that early engagement. Flame Chompers, also the stun from Annie, which will be charging on the way there. Might be something they look to offer. But most likely everyone going to fan out, which is exactly what they're doing right here, Stress. Yeah,
just going for that defensive start. It's so difficult to establish early game wards because such of a reliance on warding is down to the trinkets alone, that this early in the game, you can't deep ward, and it makes invading pretty difficult to do.
Right, so in the middle lane, going to do the classic dance-off. We'll see who wins this one out. So Sencook's rocking out a pretty cool skin. In fact, the only skin from Yasuo. Oh man, I didn't even realize they did that.
Okay. I didn't quite catch it myself.
Right.
I wasn't too sure what we were talking about there.
It was playing a musical instrument.
Oh, okay.
I didn't realize, but not really sure who's winning out on this one.
It's pretty difficult to decide who wins a dance war, but the harmonica is out in force. There we go. I hit it that time. So you're not going crazy.
No. Okay. So Barley D just hanging around the jungle has charged up that stun, which is very usual, just picking up the point in W first, which is probably one of the only abilities that you would like always pick up on the champion, because when you get into competitive play, you never put a point into anything until you really need it. And I think like Annie's stun is like the only point you would put in before going out of your fountain.
Depending on Sona's playstyle, I think you also charge up power chords. So I mean, there's very few, as you're saying, but you know, not too surprising to see that at all. Now, Fizz has gone for the Crystalline Flask start here, which is normally what you'll go on Fizz if you feel like you're going to get harassed quite a lot. You can see already taking damage there as Nuke Duck enters the lane. The other option is to go for Doran's Ring for extra damage early on. Against this lane, he wouldn't have the sustain available to survive through Yasuo's early game advantage, so I'm looking kind of at level 4 for Fizz to really start becoming potent in that lane and start deciding he can engage.
I mean, the thing generally with Yasuo is he scales really well, and his early game is meant to be weaker, but he typically just starts winning his lane against basically everyone, and it's going to make it very difficult for Fizz to do too much. And we were talking earlier about how many abilities actually allow Last Breath to be used even by themselves, like Tristana Jump, I think, what was the other one we were talking about? Riven on the third Strike of Broken Wings.
Yeah, I don't think that will be an issue with Playful Trickster, because you become untargetable.
Right.
So it's not quite the same. Yes, you do jump up into the air, but I don't think that'll become too much of a factor, because he'll be able to output a lot of damage with that Playful Trickster, and Yasuo won't be able to block any of it either.
I just wonder if it's because it's if you're airborne, and if he targets on someone else who's also airborne at the same time, whether he'll be knocked up. But I don't know, because he wouldn't be targeted, he would just also be affected at the same time.
We'll have to see whether that arises. That's quite a unique position that
I mean, no one on this team actually jumps up. Like, Mundo doesn't just ascend into the air.
Kha'Zix, however, does with Leap. So we'll see whether that becomes a factor. Because if Kha'Zix is engaged, so this is completely off the point. If Kha'Zix is engaging and jumping in with Leap, if you can go to that with Last Breath, that nullifies Kha'Zix engage.
Especially if he goes for a gank in mid lane as well and comes in from around the side. He'll like teleport to him and just walk back to the turret.
Well, this is one of these things that Yasuo is such a new champion that we haven't seen every single champion interaction. So someone in chat is probably screaming at us that it doesn't happen or it will happen. But it's one of those cases that until we've seen it in game, it's difficult to predict.
Yeah, not everyone has the knowledge just yet, because it is just such a new champion. Batman has got to initiate in mid lane. He doesn't have the ultimate just yet. Only level 4. Trashy has come in for the engage. He's got the double buff on that Wukong, but it's going to go back to farming.
But that's the Fizz versus most melee champions that you have to expect, and it looked like Reason prepared for it. Blade came backwards, hooks onto the minion,
Yeah, but the Flame Chompers came down, and that did lock down Miffy.
Reason prepared for that gank in mid very smartly. Fizz really reaches potency in that early lane at 2 points, level 4 and level 6. Level 4 because you put a second point into Playful Trickster, and it lands a lot more damage. I think it's plus 50 damage on that second point when you land. And the disruption from Playful Trickster as well as the damage allows you to stick on top of your target and really just start dealing a lot of damage. Kha'Zix came in as well to try and pick up something from that. Really nice reactions from Reason to know that at level 4 something was coming in mid.
Wukong's issue early game is generally because he has a weak laning phase. But when you're in the jungle, he doesn't really have that issue because he's just looking for those ganks. And because he does so much damage, he can trade against people really well. But it's usually because he's just outclassed by a lot of top lanes. But by putting him in the jungle, he kind of mitigates that.
Yeah, the reason Wukong jungle wasn't as prominent, or it in fact played much at all before that, was the change to the spirit items. After blue buff is worn out, he's incredibly mana intensive. His abilities can cost quite a bit of mana. So, once you've used some abilities to clear, then you go for a gank, you're out of mana, and you really just don't have a lot to do on the map without backing. This time, however, extra mana regen off the spirit items should be enough to keep them good.
Yeah, it's allowing a lot of new junglers to come into the meta, which is very interesting. And because there's not too many junglers who like to just go into the opposing jungle and start counter jungling, because camps respawn so quickly. Unless your name is Shyvana, unless you decide that all your lanes are going to win, you're not going to be against like an aggressive counter jungler. So you can afford to go like Pantheon, or indeed go with someone like that Wukong. So Queensu just putting down the damage onto Zoro. But again, it's a Mundo and it's a Renekton lane. Not too much is going to happen.
Yeah, those fights are going to take about 2 minutes before anybody actually dies. But good warding out by Reason, spotted Armin as he tried to come in to that middle lane. And although Kha'Zix has a slightly better time getting gold from farming, he still requires kills to be able to snowball through. You saw Senkux actually knock up Fizz into the air there. Didn't decide to engage on that one, though.
Yeah, so now Wukong just heading back into his own jungle. In fact, I thought that was the opposing jungle, but he's just going back to farming, which is definitely what Wukong will want to do in the early game. Past when you've gotten the double buffs, he doesn't have any CC to offer until he hits level 6. He's very similar to like the Nocturne and the Mumu jungles, where you have the early game where you have the double buff, you look for those ganks using red buff, and then you just go back to jungle, wait for level 6 and go for those ganks.
Right, let's have a look at some itemization here for our mid laners. Double Doran's Ring, fairly standard here on Fizz. We'll pick that up before heading towards the Lich Bane. Gives him the extra survivability in lane with a little more damage, especially in a lane that, although has seen an engagement already, for a Fizz lane, this is considerably more passive than he would like to be playing. And it's because of the positioning and wards from Reason that he's able to do so. There's also a lot of sustain out from Yasuo that even in these engagements, he's able to trade back.
And NIP want the fights where they're kind of in the 3v3s or the 2v2s, where everyone's not just completely stacked up. Because when they are, then you can't assassinate someone when there's like a Renekton and a Senkux on Yasuo and also a Wukong all stacked on top of each other. You jump in as Fizz and try to nuke down one target, then you're just going to die as soon as you jump in.
And pretty much what we're seeing here is a very close game for the first 8 minutes of this. Even the CS differences, the zoning hasn't really been there for both teams. They've been zoning an equal amount. All the CS is the same. Junglers are at the same CS as well. This is just how evenly matched these two teams are, that really neither wants to overstep this early on into the game.
I feel like that benefits Reason Gaming a little more than it does for NIP, because they want to be getting to the stage where they fight as a group and use the synergies between the champions, whereas you look at NIP, they want to be individually taking down certain members, and they use those strengths by having basically assassins. They're going to be by themselves. They don't need that synergy with any of their other members.
Yeah, NIP would like to have a few kills on the board before Reason drag them into team fights, because that will give them the ability to itemize for the team fights a little bit better. They'll have that extra item, extra damage to be able to assassinate people in team fights. If they go in even, then it's all down to positioning.
Right. Okay, so RG, Reason Gaming in the bottom lane, just farming it on out. There's not too much difference in terms of CS in any of these lanes, and as soon as the lanes kind of equalize and go back to the turrets, I'm sure they'll just be completely even. And Caitlyn, even though she has that extra range, Jinx hasn't really found an issue in the spot lane.
Yeah, there's been a lot of zoning potential by Barney D. When he's got that stun charged up, it's pretty difficult to step anywhere near stepping forward for the backline minions. So they've been able to pick them up, but they've got to be pretty careful about how you step forward in that lane. So it's just a case of both teams knowing exactly the limitations of their team compositions. You can see Armin trying to get up towards the top lane, but Beansu still has Dominus available, and it'll be difficult to kill a Renekton.
In fact, all of these lanes are really difficult to kill. Bonnie D gets hooked. Miffy doesn't choose to follow up. There goes the Tibbers. Trashy is coming to the bot lane. Doesn't quite catch up in time. Sencooks takes the fish and also the other fish. And first blood will be picked up by Nukeduck.
Earth pops up there for the kill, but make sure that Nukeduck made sure that he knew he could get that kill. Zero will pick the sadism and should get out of this one alive. But that was really the point at which the sidestep. Oh, wow. Nearly gets taken down. Sadism was just still going. It nearly got hit by Nukeduck in the middle lane there, which is why I took a second. But Zero looks like he will get help from Armin here.
Armin coming around the backside. Doesn't have too much CC. And there's the leap follow-up. Gets locked down. The Ruthless Predator comes into effect, but we'll be able to back off to the turret.
And that was just kind of a little bit all over the map there. You saw the global effect from Jinx come up to try and pick up the kill. It was very nice positioning as well. Nukeduck had to avoid it in the middle and delayed his recall as well. It's just one of those cases that Nukeduck dived in on mid, and there's the limitations of Yasuo. His wind wall won't block anything against Fizz, so Fizz will be okay as long as he can avoid a lot of the damage.
Yeah, Beansu once again has been jumped on by Armin. He realized by that point they were going to take the dragon, so he might as well go for round 2 on the top lane and at least push him out. This might be the opportunity for them to take this turret because there was that commitment onto dragon, and if they take that turret, it's probably worth it.
Yeah, they will have a big push on their hands to be able to take that. They didn't really get much damage, if any at all, previously. And with the dragon down in the bottom lane, with the dragon down in the bottom half of the map, bottom lane will be open to a gank from Wukong. The same with mid. So they've just got to be a bit careful that Wukong isn't positioning himself to be able to have a bigger effect on this game than Armin is.
Right, and they weren't really able to do too much in the top lane at all, Stress. Beansu, again, has been pushed out, but they haven't made it worthwhile for Armin to have committed so much time into the top lane, because typically, if you take the dragon and you trade a tower for it, then great, because of how the gold works, it now scales, and proportionally in the early game, it's worth less to go for that early dragon, but they didn't take the tower anyway, so they're actually slightly behind of Reason Gaming.
Now, it looks like Wukong's building Spirit of the Elder Lizard, so we'll have that extra damage there, which is to be expected on quite a physical champion like Wukong. And the same would be expected on Armin's Kha'Zix here out of the jungle. So only a matter of time. Beansu sees the teleport. They know he's coming back to lane, but in fact, sorry. No, that was Zoro's teleport. I got a little bit confused there because Beansu was on the other side, but it's okay. Yes. Teleport used.
Sometimes you would save the teleport if you have dragon on the field, but there's no dragon. It's going to be spawning in about 5 minutes or something because it was just taken. So there's no reason for Zoro to keep hold of that. Just going to go back into lane and just start falling behind the turret.
Yep, Mundo doing as he pleases there. You can see the Sencooks trying to land Steel Tempest. Does get it.
Yeah, last breath comes in. Trashy follows up. There's the Cyclone. No chance of getting out of that.
And that's what they got to be careful of, is that Steel Tempest, that knockup, will instantly initiate from Sencooks. They'll be able to get in on that and pick up the kill. Playful Trickster wasn't available, so couldn't escape that really nice pickup by Reason.
And even if they had missed that, then Trashy probably would have flashed into the Cyclone. He did that anyway, and then the last breath would have come out. So it just meant they had another couple seconds of knockup, but he had already definitely bitten the dust. So From the Waters was not using that engagement, but Barney D has been death sentenced. That's going to allow them to land a Piltover. I'm not going to do too much on top of that.
Yeah, it's not often that you see a death sentence land and a Caitlyn 90 caliber net away, but the reason for that was they were a little bit stacked and didn't want to get counter-engaged upon by Annie. Tibbers was available, and the stun was already charged, so Barney D was in a perfect position after getting hooked to re-engage that. So all they wanted to do there was put down more damage.
Yeah, like if he had just followed up, it's like, oh great, you've just lined up for Tibbers, and we've been placing that down very swiftly. Nikki and Freeze haven't been dominating the lane, but that's kind of, again, to be expected. We said about the Annie pick as one of those picks which doesn't necessarily, well, in fact, does kill your opponent. I mean, like, it's great on the offensive and great on the defensive, which is something that's a little bit different to other supports, which makes Annie quite favoured at the moment in the support role.
Someone else that is quite favoured in the support role is Thresh, and has that Sightstone already finished. Both supports, in fact, having Sightstone finished, so opting for the vision control over any other defensive items to begin with. You can see the coin has been picked up on Barney D, so not anything out of the ordinary on our supports here. Again, same up in the top lane, nothing out of the ordinary. 2 Sunfire Capes have been picked up. So pretty much this game playing out exactly how you'd expect it from 2 teams that are very close. Only 500 gold separates the teams.
We can basically just like disregard the top lane at this stage. We just look at the middle and bot lane, because nothing is really ever going to happen, because as soon as one person drops low, well, there's Dominus, and as soon as the other person drops low, then okay, Sadism, and Zoro Zero is just going to walk out. So Amin is going to try the top lane gank once again, and I believe he walked past the ward back near the middle lane.
Yeah, Beansu throws out the laugh.
He knows exactly what's up, and Amin is going to just wander back into that jungle.
Although Beansu now goes aggressive onto Zoro Zero, Sadism has been popped.
Well, the Ignite went down, and Beansu did at least damage Mundo. He's already gone back up to HP. Zoro Zero going back into this fight, but he knows Amin has already come back up. He didn't know if he had left. They knew exactly what where the ward was, and the kill goes down. Yeah,
that kill actually goes on to Zoro Zero as well, so Mundo will get a little bit tankier. Kha'Zix gets the assist, and you know, they're starting to reach a point where if these do go to team fights, they need a few more kills to really be as effective as they possibly could be.
There's Tibbers on top of the flame jump, but super mega death rocket will go straight onto that Caitlyn, but they can't quite finish off that kill.
And neither team has really found the positioning in front of any tower here. And it's just so back and forth in these team fights and these little skirmish engagements that neither team is really separating themselves. You can see Nuke Duck, Playful Tricksters, the Steel Tempest, and that causes the end of that engagement.
Yeah, it makes it very easy to get out of that engage. However, it doesn't allow him to get out of Trashy. He will have to, at some point, go back down into the Cyclone if they go for that mid lane gank. But it does mean they have to expend both those ultimates. Chrysalin has been hooked this time if he goes back in, but Caitlyn has already dropped. Get excited passive onto Chrysalin. Doesn't mean he'll be going under that turret, but that's the kill.
Yeah, Freeze got caught up there and wasn't able to get away from that one. That's a really nice pickup for Reason. However, convergence in the mid lane.
They're going to go ahead. Okay, this is going to go ahead and take Dragon. It's like, oh, well, there was a kill in the bot lane, so we don't actually need another in the mid. This is going to be Kha'Zix trying to react to this one. Zoro Zero pushing away Beansu. He won't be able to stop him. He's not going to dive the turret, but the Dragon goes to that team. So Mundo was pushing Renekton back, so if he wanted to teleport out, he would have been able to do that.
And this is one of the problems with picking Renekton right now in the picks and bans, is he's not the best answer to Mundo. Shyvana got nerfed, and Renekton can, you know, trade a little bit better against Shyvana, but Mundo is still very strong right now, and as soon as Mundo gets to a point where he's got that Sunfire Cape, it's difficult for Renekton to trade with him. And we've all seen how Mundo scales throughout the game and have a great effect. Renekton does somewhat start to fall off.
Yeah, he'll still have an effect in the upcoming team fights, but when we progress to the latter parts of the game, then Mundo will start to outscale Renekton, and that's something that I think the whole team of Reason Gaming have to keep in mind, that they do kind of get outscaled, especially if the kills start going to the right places. We spoke about before in Champion Select, if the kills start going on to Kha'Zix, if you get 2 kills down, then 2 kills into Fizz, they're essentially set for life, and it's going to increasingly make that quite difficult. Bot lane, though, Death Sentence lands onto Barney D, another super mega Death Rocket onto Freeze. But that just deters them from going past the turret, but they've already taken the turret, so they've already hit that casualty.
Tibbers was used just to try and deter them from taking it. The turret did go down in favor of NIP, and Nuke Duck just dodges that Steel Tempest. That would have been pretty bad for him, but NIP will steal away the blue buff.
So NIP, again, in these micro-engagements are great. In 3 versus 3s, they will thrive because they don't have that synergy. And if Trashy and Senkux are not together, then Senkux can't jump in by himself because he'll just die. And therefore, he'll need the Cyclone. So they're kind of reliant on always having those ultimates up. That creates a large window in which NIP can just go for their engage because they're not reliant on those cooldowns.
Ooh, Reason looked to try and steal away the blue for themselves. They were stood on top of a ward, ace in the hole. Reason might be caught.
Trashy gets hooked, but if he doesn't quite want to engage on that, he knew how many members were around for Reason Gaming and how many members were around for his own team.
Didn't quite see who got the blue buff from that one. Trashy did use Smite, so we'll
probably find out at some point.
Yeah, we'll have to figure that one out fairly shortly. But again, blue buff at this point in the game is not really worth the potential of giving kills to Nuke or Armin. Is really, if Reason can get out of the laning phase completely while fairly even in this game, they'll be pretty happy about that.
Zoro just pushing straight past the turret. Amin also comes up to the top lane, so Renekton unable to get anywhere close, and swapping of positions by Senkux and Nuke is all just back on off. And there's the rotation from the rest of Reason Gaming, seeing the jungler in the top lane and trying to make their own push happen in the mid.
Yeah, and they might even get this with the next minion wave. Jinx is so good at pushing down turrets that they've sacrificed top tower for this, but if they decide to go for this, which they won't, they'll recall out. Jinx is pretty good at pushing it down, but a good rotation out by NIP puts their duo lane in the middle, and now Reason are in a little bit of trouble because it's the counter push coming.
Yeah, and it doesn't seem like they're able to do too much about it, especially with those death sentences flying past. Kristen is still being aggressive, getting right up in the grill of those assassins. I'm not sure I would make the same decision.
Yeah, stepping forward on Jinx is not always the best thing. Jinx doesn't have the best escape. Can lock down opponents pretty handily, but not the greatest at getting herself out of trouble. Back up to the top lane.
Oh, and back into the middle lane. Not too much going to happen for a while. I mean, Zoro is gradually killing Binsu, but it will take several centuries.
Zoro is also gradually getting ahead in farm as well. He's at 204 to the 164, and it's a little bit troubling for Binsu now that, yes, his team are ahead. They are about 1,000 gold up, but if he consistently keeps getting behind, Mundo is going to outscale him even faster, and that's not a position that he wants to be in.
Okay, so again, everyone just reset back to their lanes. Not too much happening. So let's take a look at some of the item builds. So the most conventional builds coming out from Yasuo, which is going to be the Infinity Edge, and the Static Shiv is going to be before that, and that almost hits 100% crit. You can actually just supplement that as well with Runes and Mastery, so you do actually get 100% crit with those two items.
Yeah, I think it's something like 99.7%. I saw a tweet from Froggen to Skara the other day because Skara released a guide on Yasuo, and they were discussing how heartbreaking it would be if like a 0.3% crit made you lose an LCS game. If you didn't crit, but there's the team fight in mid.
They're going to utilize that Cyclone. Miffy flashed out of his own box. There's the death sentence just dragging Trashy towards him. But Senkux wasn't really there to use his last breath, but NIP are taking down this Baron very quickly. Binsu and the rest of Reason Gaming have realized exactly what's up. And the Ace Null comes across, lands onto Binsu. Senkux is still there. Zoro just chasing down that Yasuo. Meanwhile, in the Baron pit, he will be taking it out. Renekton takes the Baron. This is disastrous for NIP. Amin is already dead. Miffy is getting ground down. Zoro in a 1 versus 3. He cannot... Well, in fact, he's just going to walk away. Binsu, there's a slice and no dice, but that's definitely going to be Wukong following up. Nuke got himself Chrisland in the sights, but Chrisland will be able to just wave him away. Top tower surely going to fall.
Amin jumped back into the Baron pit and miss-smote. He missed smite. Yeah. So wasn't able to pick up the Baron there and had to expend flash to try and get away, and they'd already picked him off, so didn't quite manage to get back in. I didn't quite see whether it was a flash in followed by a leap out, or if he didn't even manage to get back out, but I mean, that's a big play by NIP that got misplayed completely, and now Reason will try and compound their lead with further turrets.
They took 2 turrets, a Baron, and several kills off the back of that mistake, and it's not something that NIP are going to just lose the game off, but it's going to make it very difficult, and it's now an uphill struggle, whereas before NIP were definitely equal, and an equal game wasn't exactly what NIP wanted, and they were kind of forced into making a bigger play than they really wanted. They wanted the kills to go into those assassins so they could fight the team fights. But as long as the game was equal for like another 40 minutes, then Reason Game would still be able to out-team fight them.
And the thing is, Amin will have good Baron damage because the added isolation factor. Zero, as Dr. Mundo does, have decent Baron clear, as does Caitlyn, but this early on in the game, you've got to just hope your opponents don't realize that you're doing Baron, which, unfortunately for NIP, Reason called it and knew exactly what was going on.
Stealth Barons don't really happen very much.
No.
Like, they're attempted, but they're usually stopped. Like, all the time. I wonder how many Stealth Barons actually get done in Season 4.
Not many. I know that it's pretty rare for it to happen. I think there's... we're seeing more and more earlier Barons.
Yeah.
But that's purely from picks. And NIP weren't in that position. They hadn't taken down a member or two of Reason, so they really weren't able to capitalize on that.
Okay, so we do have a quick pause. We're just going to jump back to our lovely faces. Well, I say lovely, but kind of the opposite of that, really.
Speak for yourself.
Wow. What he calls me bronze. Criticize my game
hey,
ability.
Look, you were the one saying. Look, I'm just saying.
Oh, man.
It looks like it was only a very short pause.
Jump
So
back into the game, so that's great.
we are back into game already here. Again, game number 1 here between Reason Gaming and Ninjas in Pyjamas.
Through the power of editing, that will never be seen again, hopefully, in VODs. But anyway, so Armin heading around the side, and doesn't look like too much is going to happen. But this is going to be NIP on the defensive, and when they're running 2 assassins who are actually going to get picked off themselves, Nukeduck takes a bit of damage from Beansu, and, well, Miffy offered him the lantern, but it looked like Nukeduck was going to be like, no, I can make my own way. I can get back into mid lane. And
now, Assassins aren't the best at defending objectives because Assassins are pretty much players that go to the school of thought of the best defense is to go and kill you.
Yeah.
Which, when you're behind, doesn't work. You really have to get some pretty poor opponent positioning to be able to pick up kills with Assassins when you're behind. It's not impossible. It's certainly not even, uncommon to see an assassin pick up a kill from behind, and it's at that point that assassins can really turn the game on its head. But against a team like Reason, who are pretty consistent, I would be surprised to see them give away picks.
But there are a lot of situations when you're behind, specifically like the siege situations, where they'll be really bad. I mean, okay, you're an assassin. You're going to assassin 1 creep out of 6. And that's not going to allow you to continue to defend your turret. Sencooks moving on to 0-0 may well be able to get this. He's got 2 defensive items in terms of armor. It doesn't seem like it's going to be enough for Chrisland. The ace was locked onto him, but Beansu will tank that one up. Mid lane gonna fall, and they do not really have the ability to stop this from happening. And 0-0 still fighting Sencooks. He has ground him down. The entirety of Sadism has kept him healthy. There's the ultimate, the last breath landing. The wind wall comes out, and 0-0 just cleavers him down.
Yeah, Sencooks trying to outplay their looks for the Super Mega Death Rocket.
No.
Won't be there. They knew the pathing of it completely there. You saw the pings follow it, but NIP have got a little problem on their hands, is the fact that they cannot wave clear without Caitlyn. Caitlyn is their only form of ranged wave clear here, apart from, of course, Void Spikes, but it's one of the questions on a jungle Kha'Zix is, do you put that last point into Void Assault, or do you put it into Void Spikes? And that's really only determined later on, as this game gets later and later. Armin's only level 13, so it doesn't have to make that decision yet. But without, the enhanced Void Spikes, they're reduced to only Caitlyn being able to clear the wave. Thresh can't clear a wave very quickly. Mundo has to stand in it to really clear a wave. And again, Fizz has to really put himself out there to be able to clear, because they're all melee. So it's going to be difficult under the siege power of Reason.
Yeah, it's not exactly like they have a big ultimate they can just throw down and at least one wave is gone, like the Culling or a Garakis Barrel or like a Lux Laser. They don't have anything like that. They literally just have their normal abilities to just try their best. Reason Gaming might not be able to push down an inhibitor turret, but at some point they will. And NIP are well aware of that. It's just whether they want to make the commitments in terms of not only itemization, but also as the Void Spikes you were talking about before in a couple levels time from Amin. But they will need to start thinking about their item builds, because do you want to go for a static shift from Caitlyn, which will take away from your end game strength, which is what they'll be looking towards, or do they want to have to try and commit hard to stalling out the game?
And we've seen Caitlyn go for the Bloodthirster Last Whisper, which has been fairly common in recent times, especially in Europe. Getting that extra damage rather than attack speed early has seemed to be favored by European AD carries, and isn't too surprising. We have also seen the Caitlyn attack speed second item of normally a Static Shiv or a Phantom Dancer, but as you said, reduces the overall damage from Static Shiv would if they were to pick that one up. So we'll see where Caitlyn goes as Nukeduck tries to ward out, but Reason just keeping on top of things.
it's not even like NIP are behind in items. It's just that Reason Gaming have more items. That sounded weird.
I don't think that
NIP
came out quite the way you expected that to.
NIP still have items. I'm going to stop digging this hole now.
I think the point I'm trying to say is, at this point in the game, NIP have some significant items. You look at Durandu and Zoman with the Sunfire Cape, the Zhonya's and the Lich Bane on Fizz, but Senkux is in trouble.
Yeah, and Nukdog coming around from around the side. 0-0 does take the Super Mega Death Rocket, but he's quite tanky, and byproduct of building so much armor is that you can dive those turrets.
Yeah, that is a good product of that. But Reason now find themselves pushing in towards the inhibitor turret. They won't be able to get it because here's the teleport from behind. Instant team fight position.
However, they might just be able to collapse and run there as soon as he arrives. He's going to be flashing out, and he's on the run towards the enemy base. The Zap's going to land, but his team are just too far behind him. The teleport waited both of the summoners are just on cooldown, and now underneath the sanctuary of their turret, they will be able to go for this fight.
Yeah, 0-0 teleporting in, I think was a good plan in theory, but he's being caught.
This is not a good plan in theory because he's continuously being locked down. Caitlyn's over the wall, dealing some damage. 0-0 is still alive. Nukdog is trying to find himself the right target. Cyclone comes up, only lands on one target. The back line is still very healthy from NIP. Beansu will get hooked. Trashy has come back in, and Beansu is still alive. Nukdog has just found himself a kill as he's just hanging around the back of the team fight. Jumps in. This should be another one coming up. Bonnie D locks him up. The overtime damage from Nukdog will be enough. There's the triple kill. And I just think this became relevant again.
Nobody peeled for Krislin. Krislin was left alone in the back there, and Nukdog just dived straight away onto Jinx, and that's exactly what you'd expect from a Fizz. That's what they needed to kickstart them back into this game. A 5-1 Fizz will now be difficult to deal with. He's got a Void Staff, so he'll chunk through a lot of the magic resist that Reason have picked up. They need to start eliminating Nukdog from these fights a little bit earlier.
And it's going to be very difficult to eliminate him from team fights. He's got a Playful Trickster, which is going to be on a very low cooldown. He's also got the Zhonya's Hourglass on top of that. And by the time he's Zhonya's Hourglass, then Playful Trickster is going to be back up again. So that's a good, 6 seconds of invulnerability. Makes it very difficult to deal with from Reason Gaming. It's one of the reasons why, the kills being onto Fizz is probably the best person at this stage for those kills to be on.
Yeah, right now he's looking quite strong in this matchup, and the gold still favors Reason, and Reason still do have their lead in this game. The difficulty is they cannot let Krislin be alone in the back of their team fights just like that. That's what we were talking about, is it's difficult for Assassins to come back into the game without poor positioning, and Reason just allowed an Assassin straight onto their AD carry.
Reason Gaming don't really have too much in terms of peeling. They have Bonnie D, they have a stun. But that can be dodged by Fizz, and then who else are they going to commit? Well, they can't commit Trashy, and they can't commit Senkux, because one Senkux doesn't really have any form of CC to help peel for Krislin. But at the same time, Trashy, their entire composition revolves around landing the Cyclone into the last breath, and then Beansu is just there for general tankiness. I mean, he could be the one to peel, but then they just have a very weak front line, and then they end up not really doing anything.
And again, that's the problem with Jinx, is Jinx doesn't have that escape. Barney D has no escape either.
It's feeding time, and Chum the Waters comes out, and that's a very quick kill.
That is a lightning fast kill, but that's what you have to expect with a Fizz. He will remove somebody from the map if they're out of position.
I'm not sure if the Earth got the kill there, because I know if you're a Yordle or a small champion, you actually disappear from the map if Chum the Waters kills you.
That's an interesting little interaction, but NIP this time, they've got the pick. They feel more confident in taking down the Baron, but they won't go for it. It's a bait.
It is, and Beansu heads around the side. There's the Talisman of Ascension. He gets dragged back into his team, and everyone has just run away, evacuated, and just left Beansu to die like every bad horror film.
And this is one of the problems with not being able to establish control, is NIP might just do it all over again. You can't let them go and do Baron. You cannot just give that away. But if NIP just pull the same trick again...
And rinse and repeat.
There goes Krislin.
And they might even find themselves trashy as well. Duke's out of the way, but he's going to be using Cyclone to just keep himself alive. It's not going to be enough. There we go. The shutdown for Caitlyn. Ammon jumps forward with that reset. and presumably they're going to do Baron, but they might go for round 3.
I don't think they'll go for round 3. NIP have already won the Mind Games war on that one. They will now take Baron as well, and that will bring them nearly level in this game. And NIP are now in a much stronger position. They've got even more kills on to Nuke Duck, and we've seen what Nuke Duck can do on an assassin when he gets fed. Now NIP are comfortable. They looked a little shaky in the first 25 minutes of this game, but NIP have found their footing again. However, Reason still very consistent team and still have themselves the gold lead. They have to wait out Baron though.
And they're very much in this game stress, so we'll see exactly what they can do. They've got that 2k gold lead, as you just mentioned, and they are still ahead on towers. And we spoke before about how gold lead is great, and you can be ahead in the game, but so is map control. And yes, they have the temporary advantage in form of Baron in terms of how well that last team fight went, but that was a very specific fight. It wasn't a 5-on-5, it was the right type of fight as Beansu just stops recalling and annoys 0-0 as he was heading towards that turret. But they can't hope for that fight every single time. They can't always just sit inside of a bush or a Baron pit and expect people to go to them.
And that all stems from Bunny D being caught like this. Nuke Duck being able to pick off Annie, as you said, gave them the advantageous team fight. Senkux goes aggressive.
Well, they're moving on to Mundo, but it is Mundo.
Yeah, that was... I was wondering why they were being aggressive there, but NIP are the team really that when they see the numbers in their favor can choose to be aggressive.
Okay, so again, Beansu, fun 0-0, but 0-0 doesn't deal huge amounts of damage and doesn't take a great amount of damage either at this stage. But when people on full health, those cleavers are hurting quite a lot, and they will always deal a minimum damage. Bottom tower will be falling to Nuke Duck, and they're going for an engagement in the middle lane with Ammon off to the side. The Cyclone is still following up. Senkux is moving in. There's the follow onto Freeze, and he will be dropping into the death chamber. 4 versus 5 over the boards, and this is Fizz coming from the backside, and this is a very weird situation. Barney D gets jumped on, the lantern comes across, and Tibbers will actually be juked out, but this is Reason Gaming pushing straight down the middle turret.
Yeah, and because they've got so much AD, they can take these turrets down very quickly. Fizz hasn't quite been able to rotate before the inhibitor drops, but now Reason are caught out in their opponent's base. Beansu manages to flash out, but Reason might just base race this.
Reason Gaming are heading straight towards the Nexus. There's nowhere to run, so we might as well try and finish off the game while everyone's trying to converge on us, and they might even do it. They're just going for the Nexus. Can they take it down in time? It's about 50% HP. This is NIP trying their best to take them down. It's not going to happen. That's Reason Gaming taking the first round in this best of 3.
What an end to that game. Reason playing the game of, can we end the game before you can end our lives? And Reason clearly coming out ahead. And for all intents and purposes, NIP had somewhat of an advantage at that point. They had the Baron. Normally you would not choose to make a play like that against a Baroned up team, but they avoided the fight, got the critical pick, and managed to push through. And it's not often that you see a game end that way.
They were very skittish about going for that last engage. They had to all group up and then go for the fight on Reason Gaming. But while they had that indecision, Reason Gaming were like, okay, well, we'll just finish the game then. That's exactly what happened. Like, we don't really see games ever end like that. I don't think I've ever casted a game where that's happened.
No, I mean, I said it was a base race. It wasn't a base race. It was just Reason racing against NIP of who killed what first. But that was a rather explosive end to that game. And I think we need a minute to get our minds and heads around that one. So we're going to head to a short break, guys, as we head into game number 2 here between Reason Gaming and NIP. But make sure you stick around for the rest of this best of 3 and the rest of our games here for the FACEIT Challenger Invitational.